Hello, my name is Casieli Fatanriola. I am a college student from Universitas Bina Nusantara, and I am currently majoring in psychology. So, the topic I will be talking about is the rationale supporting early childhood education. Basically, there are a few subtopics under this topic, and I will be explaining them one by one. The first thing that we should do is to go over the learning outcomes. The first point is to identify and understand the developmental processes of early childhood professionals. The second point is to recognize the importance of theory in guiding, comprehending young children's development and learning. The third point is to understand fundamental theories used for effective strategies in working with young children. And the last one is to gain knowledge on effective early childhood practices based on strong body of research. Now let's go over these subtopics. The first subtopic is children through time. The first point here we have Greeks' viewpoint on human development. So the Greeks basically viewed human development as a transformation from the imperfect state of childhood to the ideal of adulthood. In fact, back in time, education for girls and boys was carried on for several hundred years in the Greek tradition. And the writings of Greek philosophers Plato and Aristotle also stressed the importance of appropriate education in shaping children's character. By 18th century, the Industrial Revolution swept both Europe and America, which the economic search for cheap labor led to the abuse of many children in factories. By 20th century, the view of early childhood became an important part of human development and was promoted. Education for all children also became accepted during the period. Okay, so now let's move on to the influential people in the history of early childhood. So this is just a brief view of some contributions to our current view of young children and their care and education. So the first person we have here is Jean-Jacques Rousseau from the year 1712 till the year 1778. Rousseau highlighted the importance of childhood, and he saw childhood as a noble savage. So what this means is without civilization, they are essentially good without being exposed to corrupted influences of civilization. He believes that children are still viewed pure and in harmony with nature. So this influenced the idea of Pestalozzi, Froebel, Montessori, and other influential people in the history of early childhood. And Johann Pestalozzi, in the year 1746 until the year 1827, he made a model determination as to what was right for a teacher who taught children. He also stated that the need for active learning and education needs to be increased. Okay, and many people admired him for his teaching methods and attention for underprivileged children. Okay, now let's move on to Friedrich Froebel. In the year 1782 till the year 1852, Froebel was the person who sparked the making of kindergarten. He believed that kindergarten was truly a garden for children, where playing comes first while learning. He placed a great emphasis on the importance of play and the development of early childhood material. Okay, lastly, Maria Montessori from the year 1870 until the year 1952. Montessori developed Casa dei Bambini, which is basically a home for poor children. She also developed comprehensive programs, which includes formulation theory, curriculum materials, and child-sized furnishing. Let's take a look at the influential theorists of child development. Erik Erikson is a psychosocial theorist which he developed 8 stages that span childhood and adulthood. So here we'll be only discussing 4 stages of childhood. The first stage is trust versus mistrust. This age range is from birth through 18 months. Usually children at this age will believe in anyone who can give them more attention so they can feel more comfortable and calm when being near the person. The next one is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This age range is from 18 months through 3 years. At this age, the child already has the ability to do some activities independently, such as eating, walking, or even wearing sandals. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. This age range is from 3 to 6 years. At this age, it can be called an exploration stage, which means that children's motor skills and language begin to mature, allowing them to be more aggressive in exploring their environment, both physically and socially. The last stage is industry versus inferiority, age range from 6 to 12 years. This age is when children begin academic education and socializing to the environment towards their peers. Now let's move on to Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget developed the cognitive developmental theory that focuses on children's intelligence and thinking abilities. So here we have 4 distinctive stages. The first stage is the sensory motor period. According to Piaget, starting from birth to 2 years, the growth of children's abilities can be seen from motor activities and their simple perception. In the second stage, which is the pre-operational period, main characteristics at this stage is the use of symbols or sign language and the development of intuitive concepts. So this stage is divided into 2, namely pre-operational and intuitive. So pre-operational stage, children are able to use language and developing their concepts, although it is still very simple, okay? This is from ages 2 to 4 years. And at the intuitive stage, ages 4 to 7 or 8 years old, children can acquire knowledge based on abstract impressions. The third stage, which is the concrete operations period, the main characteristic of development at this stage is that the child has begun to use clear and logical thinking skills, okay? So for example, a child knows that Play-Doh is still basically the same, okay, even though the Play-Doh has been formed into a star and has not changed in number, even though it is physically different. Now, the last stage, which is the formal operations period, characteristics of this development is for the child to be able to think more abstractly and logically. Okay, so it's an update, it's an upgrade from the concrete operations period. Now we will move on to B.F. Skinner. He basically focused on behavioral theory, which emphasizes that all behaviors are learned and can be improved with positive consequences and reduced by negative consequences. Behaviorism is a behavior formed by environmental forces, specifically in response to reward and punishment. So, for example, when a teacher encourages a child to correctly identify the color blue, the child will most likely repeat that behavior. The last theorist we have here is Lev Vygotsky. Okay, he proposed 2 theories. The first theory is the sociocultural theory that explains the importance of social interaction, especially dialogue between children and adults. The second theory is the zone of proximal development, or as known as the ZPD. This zone is a task that cannot be done independently by the child. So to achieve the task, he or she is supported by an older child or an adult. Now, moving on to the next subtopic, which is the application of theories in early childhood. So there are 5 programs under this subtopic that I will be discussing, and the first program that I will be talking about is the Montessori programs. Basically, this program develops programs to meet the needs of children and help them learn important life skills. And it allows existing material to be used only in specified procedures. So now let's take a look at the environment. The environment has a sense of order, and the children's equipment and materials are clearly arranged on shelves. There are also different areas, each containing unique materials. And lastly, the environment is also said to be beautiful or eye-catching materials. Now, the children. Children of various ages are involved in individual activities. It could be any activity, and children begin activities and are free to get involved in whatever project they choose. And lastly, younger children may learn how to participate in special activities. Okay, so now the curriculum. There are actually 3 different areas of the curriculum. The first one is the daily living, which emphasizes practical activities that focus on self-help and environmental care skills. The second one is the conceptual or academic materials, which basically they provide activities that are concrete and actively involve children in various ways. And the last one is sensorial, which basically helps children develop, regulate, expand, and improve the perception of the sense of sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Now, the teacher's involvement is very little, so the children are more independent, and instead they observe from a distance or show or guide the child how to use new material. And the materials here are didactic, which means that it's instructional, it's more informative, and each designed is to teach a particular lesson. Self-correcting is one of the methods that teachers use for children to get immediate feedback from the material after completing a task correctly or wrongly. Let's move on to the next program or approach, which is called the Bank Street approach. Now, the Bank Street approach has a developmental interactionist model that shows that this program is not only related to all aspects of child development, but also emphasizes interactions both between children and the environment and between children's cognitive and affective areas. So, this approach is built based on Piaget and Erikson's theories. It also encourages children's intellectual and socio-emotional development. And furthermore, it offers open education, which the program does not teach children many new concepts, but helps them completely understand what they already know. And lastly, it is based on the child's own experience, so children must be involved directly and actively. So how do we perceive the environment of the Bank Street approach? Now, class money is organized in the fields of conventional interests, such as music, art, and science. And the purpose of each area is basically determined by the material or the material available. Now, the teacher's role here, they must have a keen understanding of the child's development towards individuality and how to build the best environment that will encourage each child to fulfill their potential. They also have to help children develop a strong sense of self and make good choices, develop joy in learning, and feel more confident enough to take risks and handle contradictions. Now, lastly, the curriculum. The curriculum is basically designed to help them understand and master their school environment by participating in activities that may contribute to their functions. And lastly, learning is extended beyond the classroom to the community. This way, it can broaden children's understanding of the meaningful elements that affect their lives. The next program we have here is the cognitively oriented curriculum. So this is based on Piaget's theory, and it focuses on activities that help children learn specific cognitive concepts. And it is also based on the premise that children are active learners. So the environment that is perceived here is designed to be stimulating but orderly, and the classrooms are divided into clearly defined work areas, each with a specific set of materials that are appropriate for the area. And it contains at least households, blocks, art, quiet areas and large groups, construction, music and movement, sand and water, and animal and plant work areas. Now, let's view the schedule. The schedule here that they apply is the plan, do, review cycle, which helps children make deliberate and systematic choices with the help of the teacher. So, what's the plan, do, review cycle? It consists of planning time, work time, and recall time. So planning time is where each child determines what activities he wants to participate in with the help of the teacher. Then the teacher records the plan. And during work time, children will implement their plans in activities chosen by themselves, and that will be supported and assisted by the teacher. Lastly, the recall time is conducted in small groups where children review their activities. So now, what's part of the curriculum? Active learning occurs when activities begin and are carried out by the children themselves. And there's the use of language that is strongly emphasized and encouraged through talking with others. Furthermore, there is also representation of ideas and experiences. There is also classification and seriation, which is the ability to group objects and to arrange objects in sequence. There is also number concept here, which is the understanding of quantity and encourages children to compare and count. There is also spatial relationships, where they learn the position between objects or people. And there's time, which involves understanding the unit and sequence of events in time. So now let's move on to the next program, which is the Reggio Emilia approach. Now, the environment is perceived as a more comfortable, pleasing environment where human relationships and learning are central. Distinctive features in school are an atelier, a special studio or workshop where children and the teacher have access to various resource material for describing their experience. So what is the role of the teachers in the Reggio Emilia school? They basically work in pairs as accompanying teachers who live with a group of children for 3 years, from infants to the age of 3 to 6. The teacher's role is also to be a resource for, and in a sense, a learning partner with children. The programs also include time for weekly staff meetings and provide ongoing staff development, both of which lead to strong commitment, skills, and a sense of professionalism. The curriculum consists of projects that are a central concept in which the Reggio Emilia curriculum is centered, because basically the schedule in Reggio Emilia schools is flexible and it includes a lot of time for children to work on projects. The project also allows children, usually in small groups, to explore concepts or topics in depth. And the representations of learning in projects are expressed in works of art. Now, the last program we have here is the Waldorf Education Program. Now, the Waldorf School is the fastest growing independent education in the world today. So the schools are based on the work of Rudolf Steiner, which many of his ideas are very much in harmony with theorists whose works were taken afterwards, such as Piaget. Waldorf School was also established for preschoolers, elementary, and middle schoolers. The philosophy here is that this program focuses on all areas of development, including spiritual and moral. The characteristics and learning styles of children are different at each stage. The curriculum of the Waldorf education consists of topics and fields of study which are presented in experiments rather than abstract ways. And the environment is interesting, and it invites the environment to be more comfortable, and it's like a home, especially for young children. After we discuss the 5 programs, now we will move on to the evaluation of early childhood models. The 5 models of early childhood programs are all based on the concept of how children develop and at different levels on what are considered practices that are developmentally appropriate. So the assumption for this model is that children will benefit most from direct teaching and learning the topics that will be most important when they enter primary school. And the main subjects that are offered at primary school are mathematics, language, and reading. But we do have to keep in mind that the early childhood education is not a single integrated field based on an agreed philosophy. So, about the research support for early childhood education, much of the research on the effectiveness of early childhood education comes from evaluating programs designed for children from poverty backgrounds. The results of these studies are important in measuring the value of our compensation with more general information about early education. Here are the effects of early intervention. Many intervention programs show some short-term results in increasing IQ and achievement scores for the first 2 years of elementary school. And broader assessments of compensatory programs have demonstrated that early intervention can have important and lasting effects. In a survey of outcome evaluations from a number of early childhood programs for children from low-income families, numerous clear long-term elements were found, which include not only IQ gains but also higher test scores and better progress throughout the school years. So basically, what this means is that this research on early intervention programs such as Head Start has shown and resulted on long-term positive effects and cost benefits. Now let's move on to the effects of early childhood programs on low-risk children. There is a 2 large-scale study that found that the majority of young American children, especially in infants and toddlers, are in mediocre or inferior early childhood settings. So Anderson followed children who had been in high-quality infant and child care to ages 8 and 13. Children were more socially competent because they are affected by the child care quality in the early childhood program. So preschoolers emotionally express much more positive when caregivers are more engaged and supportive in their interactions with the children than in centers where teachers just ignore or minimally interact with the youngsters. Another study found that children who had more positive relations with their teachers in preschool had fewer behavior problems in elementary school. And children who had been in higher quality programs as preschoolers continued to have higher scores in language and math in elementary school. However, children in poor quality childcare from an early age were the least task-oriented and most distractible in kindergarten. So this research shows that high-quality childcare has an effect of all aspects of children's development. So the last research support we have here is the pre-kindergarten 3 supporting continuing educational success for young children. So here, high-quality early childhood programs have a positive effect on the performance of young children. However, research shows that such positive effects often tend to fade out over time as students move through grades 1, 2, and 3. So basically, pre-kindergarten 3 is a new approach that stresses the importance of continuity and arrangement among early childhood and elementary programs. This is the assessment for this topic. The first question is, who are the people who shaped our view of young children into what it is today? The second question is, mention 3 theorists of child development and explain their perspectives or theory. The third question is, mention the early childhood education models or programs and the theorists or founder that are linked to each model. And the last question is, have these program approaches been supported by research, and what does the research tell us about the effects of early childhood education? Here are the answers. That is all from me. Thank you.